He completed the greatest pilgrimage in all of Chinese mythology. He earned Buddhahood. He was finally, after 500 years of imprisonment and an entire lifetime of chains, supposed to be free. And then the headband never came off. That is not the ending Journey to the West tells. That is not the ending most people know. But it is the ending that black myth Wukong quietly, devastatingly proposes. And once you understand what that means, you cannot look at the Monkey King's story the same way again. Because if the headband stayed, then everything that came after, the return to the mountain, the battle with Erlang Shen, the shattering of the great sage into 6 pieces, was not a defeat. It was a plan. The most ambitious, most painful, most quietly heroic plan one creature has ever made in the face of a universe that refused to let him simply be free. Welcome to Sleepable Gaming Lore. Get comfortable. Settle in. Tonight we are following the full legend of Sun Wukong. From the stone he was born from, through the chaos of heaven, through 5 centuries of silence and 1 long road west, all the way to the dark aftermath that the novel never showed and the game spent years building. Every name he carried, every chain placed on him, and the moment right near the end where you realize the story you thought you were watching was actually a completely different story the whole time. Let's begin at the very beginning, which in this case is a rock. On the highest peak of a mountain called Huaguo Shan, the mountain of flowers and fruit, there sat a stone. Nothing about it looked remarkable. It was simply there, in the way that very old things are simply there. It had been standing on that summit since before the current age of the world began, and for all of that time it had been slowly absorbing something. The warmth of the sun every morning, the cool radiance of the moon at night, the deep spiritual energy of the mountain itself, gathered over millennia. The novel Journey to the West, written by Wu Chenggen in the 16th century during the Ming dynasty, describes the stone as receiving the nurture of heaven, Yang, the positive force, and the nurture of earth, Yin, the negative. Between the two, held inside the stone long enough, something extraordinary began to form. The ancient text calls it simply a magic womb. One day, that womb burst open. From it came a stone egg, roughly the size of a ball. The wind touched it, and the egg became a stone monkey, already fully formed, already moving, already turning its face toward the world with 5 senses and 4 limbs. Its eyes opened and shot 2 beams of golden light, so bright they reached the Jade Palace in heaven and startled the Jade Emperor himself. He sent officers to investigate. They returned and told him it was a stone monkey, and that the light was already fading as the creature ate and drank. The Jade Emperor decided it was nothing special. He turned away. That, as history would eventually note, was perhaps the most consequential mistake ever made in the Celestial Court. The mountain was home to a community of other monkeys, and the stone monkey joined them. Quick and bold, one of the first great markers of what kind of creature he was came almost immediately. The community had discovered a waterfall crashing down from a high cliff and wondered what lay behind it. They made a challenge. Whoever was brave enough to leap through the waterfall and discover what was on the other side would be named their king. The monkeys hemmed and considered. Only one stepped forward. He crouched, shut his eyes, and jumped. Behind the waterfall was a cave, a hidden cavern with stone furniture, a spring, an iron bridge, cool and sheltered and perfect. He leaped back through the water, landed dripping among his companions, and announced what he had found. They were overjoyed. As promised, they named him King. Someone called him Beautiful, which was how his first title found him, the Handsome Monkey King. He moved them all into the water curtain cave. And for a while, that was enough. They played and ate and lived freely on the mountain. The Monkey King led them and protected them, and took real pleasure in both. But happiness has a way of cracking eventually, and what cracked it was the death of an old monkey in the community, who simply grew still one day and did not rise. The Monkey King, looking at the body of his companion, felt something settle heavily over him for the first time. He did not want to die. Not like that. Not just going quiet and cold while the mountain continued without him. He had been born from something ancient and powerful, and the idea of being reduced to nothing felt not just frightening, but wrong in some deep and wordless way. So the Monkey King made a decision that would eventually shake the heavens. He would leave the mountain and find a way to live forever. The Monkey King traveled for years. He crossed ocean, wandered through human settlements, watched the way mortal lives moved and ended. He dressed himself in clothes he found drying on a line and walked through towns observing everything. He was looking for a teacher, an immortal who knew the secrets of the universe and might be willing to share them. He found a woodcutter singing a strange song, a melody about a place in the forest where an immortal lived. Following the trail that song described, the Monkey King arrived at the entrance of a temple in the mountains. The master inside was a Taoist sage called Zushi, Patriarch Bodhi, a figure of immense power and deliberate mystery. Bodhi did not open his door to everyone. He turned the monkey away. The monkey refused to leave. He stayed outside the entrance for months, patient in a way that clearly surprised everyone who passed. Eventually, Patriarch Bodhi admitted him. He gave the monkey a name. The surname he chose was Sun, a quiet, linguistic joke. Monkeys in Chinese are sometimes called Husun, and Bodhi took the character Sun from that word, removed the radical that marked it as an animal, and left a word meaning descendant or person. The given name was Wukong, awakened to emptiness, or aware of the void. A name rooted in Buddhist philosophy, pointing toward the understanding that the world of forms is ultimately insubstantial. Sun Wukong, the descendant awakened to emptiness, a name that reflected both what he was and what he might someday become. Patriarch Bodhi taught him many things. The 72 transformations, the ability to shift into any of 72 distinct forms, from animals to objects to other people. The somersault cloud, allowing Wukong to travel 108,000 li, roughly 54,000 kilometers, in a single bound, making him one of the fastest beings in existence. The way of immortality. Sun Wukong absorbed all of it with extraordinary speed, practicing constantly and inevitably, showing off. That is where the trouble came from. Bodhi had specifically warned him, do not display your abilities unnecessarily. It invites resentment and demands you cannot fulfill. Wukong, among fellow students one day, could not resist a transformation. Bodhi appeared. The Monkey King was expelled from the temple immediately, but before he sent him away, Bodhi gave one final instruction. Never reveal who taught you. If anyone asks about your powers, say you learned them in dreams. Never speak your teacher's name. Wukong, for all his wildness, was fundamentally loyal. He agreed. For the rest of his life, when anyone pressed him on the source of his abilities, he said he learned everything in his sleep. The identity of Patriarch Bodhi himself remains one of the most deliberately unresolved mysteries in the novel. Some scholars suggest he may be a disguised form of the Buddha, while others read him as an exceptionally powerful Taoist sage who preferred anonymity. The novel gives no final answer, and that ambiguity reads like an intentional choice. Wukong's deepest origins are meant to remain permanently outside the reach of celestial authority, as though even the question of where he came from cannot be owned by anyone. He returned to Huaguoshan, the beginning of a legend. Back home, Wukong found things had gotten worse in his absence. A demon called the Demon King of Confusion had been raiding the mountain, kidnapping monkeys and forcing them into slavery. Wukong dealt with this, but the incident clarified something he had already sensed. He needed a weapon equal to what he had become. He descended to the underwater palace of Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea. He asked for a weapon worthy of his level. The Dragon King brought out spear after blade after staff, and Wukong lifted each one and set it down, finding them too light. Finally, the Dragon King mentioned something gathering dust in a corner. The Ruyi Jingu Bang, a pillar of black iron banded with gold, at each end, originally used to measure the depths of the seas. It was enormous. No one had ever been able to lift it. It was, by any practical measure, useless. Wukong walked over, wrapped one hand around it, and lifted it without effort. There was an immediate connection between them, monkey and staff, something the novel describes as almost alive. Wukong discovered it could change size at his will. A spoken word made it shrink down to the size of a sewing needle, small enough to tuck behind his ear. Another thought, and it could fill a valley. The Dragon King also furnished him with golden chainmail, dragon-soaring arm guards, a phoenix feather cap, and cloud-walking boots. Wukong left the underwater palace looking like exactly what he was. He returned to the mountain, celebrated with his monkeys, got drunk, and was dragged in his sleep before the King of the Dead, who had come to collect him like any ordinary mortal. Wukong woke in the underworld, discovered himself in line for reincarnation, and was furious. He argued that as an immortal, he did not belong on any list of mortal creatures. Then he found the great book of life and death, and crossed out the entries for himself and every monkey of Hua Guo Shan, erasing them all from the record of those who must die. Both the Dragon King and the King of the Dead reported his behavior to the Jade Emperor. Multiple celestial departments were now filing complaints about the same monkey. The Jade Emperor, deciding the easiest approach was bureaucratic absorption, offered Wukong an official position in the Heavenly Court, the keeper of the heavenly horses. Wukong accepted with enthusiasm. He moved into heaven and threw himself into the work until he asked a colleague what rank his title actually carried. It was one of the lowest positions in all of heaven, essentially a stable hand. Wukong's enthusiasm vanished. He considered this for one moment, decided it was a deliberate insult, walked out, and returned to Hua Guoshan. There, he declared the title he believed he actually deserved. Qi Tian Da Sheng, the great sage, equal to heaven, a title he had invented for himself, placing him at precisely the level of the Jade Emperor. The Celestial Court was not amused. What followed was a series of escalating confrontations between the court and one extraordinarily powerful monkey who would not accept that anyone outranked him. The Jade Emperor sent armies. Wukong defeated them. He sent his finest generals. Wukong defeated them too. 100,000 celestial soldiers, all 4 of the heavenly kings, and the young warrior deity Neja all went up against the Monkey King and came away beaten. He fought with his staff, his transformations, a joyful aggression that was as impressive as it was infuriating. Eventually, the Bodhisattva Guanyin suggested bringing in Erlang Shen, the Jade Emperor's nephew on his mother's side, a 3-eyed warrior god born of a forbidden union between a celestial goddess and a mortal man, left caught between 2 worlds, but extraordinarily capable in both. Erlang arrived with his divine hunting dog and met Wukong on the battlefield. For the first time, someone matched the Monkey King. The 2 of them fought through dozens of transformations. Wukong shifting forms, Erlang countering each one, both of them cycling through every technique they knew with the urgency of 2 geniuses in full competition. It was one of the most remarkable battles in the entire novel. and it contains, as we will eventually understand, the most important secret in black myth, Wukong. Hold that. We are coming back to it. Wukong was eventually captured through the combined intervention of Guanyin and Laozi from above. Distraction enough for Erlang's divine hound to seize him. The court attempted to execute him and failed spectacularly. By this point, Wukong had accumulated extraordinary layers of immortality. He had stolen and eaten through the Queen, Mother's peaches of immortality at the Peach Banquet. A single peach, the novel tells us, grants 10,000 years of life, and Wukong ate through the entire garden. He had also eaten through Laozi's elixir pills stored in the alchemical furnace, where he had been placed as an execution method and simply sat through 49 days of samadhi fire. That fire, rather than destroying him, burned away the remaining impurities of mortality and gave him something new: fiery eyes and golden pupils, the ability to see through any disguise, pierce any illusion, and recognize evil, regardless of the form it chose to wear. Every subsequent attempt to kill him, beheading, boiling, poison, achieved nothing. In desperation, the Jade Emperor summoned the Buddha. Tathagata arrived and made the Monkey King a wager. Leap out of the Buddha's palm, and the throne of heaven is yours. Wukong agreed immediately. He leaped across an incomprehensible distance, found what he believed were the 5 pillars at the edge of the universe, wrote his name on one as proof, and leapt back. He had been inside the Buddha's palm the entire time. The pillars were the Buddha's fingers. His name was written on one of them. Wukong had been tricked, and for the first time in his life, he had no answer for it. The Buddha sealed him inside the 5 Elements mountain, a prison of stone reinforced with a golden talisman. And the Monkey King, who had stormed heaven and matched the greatest warrior the gods possessed, could not move, could only wait. He waited for 500 years. There is something worth pausing on in the image of Sun Wukong under the mountain. This was a creature who had been born from a stone on the highest peak of the world, who had lifted the weapon that held the seas in place, who had danced through battles that should have ended him, whose laughter had echoed through the jade halls of heaven. And here he was, sealed, still, for half a millennium. What does that do to a mind like his? The novel moves past this time quickly, giving us the shape of the years rather than the texture. What we can reasonably infer, from the way Wukong carries himself in the game's prologue, and from what 500 years of forced immobility would do to any living mind, is that this period changed him in ways that cannot be attributed to simple patience. The centuries did not diminish his power, but they almost certainly deepened something in his understanding of what the Celestial Court was, and what they would always be willing to do to keep him controlled. The monk who freed him was Tang Sanzang, Xuanzang, Tang the monk, Jin Chan, a Buddhist pilgrim tasked by Guanyin with traveling from Tang Dynasty China to India to retrieve sacred scriptures. He was entirely mortal, without any combat ability, and the road would be dense with demons who believed consuming his flesh would grant immortality. He needed protection. Guanyin pointed him toward the Gustetsudara mountain. Tang Sanzang removed the golden talisman. The mountain split, and Wukong emerged, and bowed genuinely, because 500 years had clarified his relationship to gratitude. He knelt before the monk and agreed to serve as his disciple on the journey west. But Guanyin had prepared something in advance, a golden headband given to the monk to pass to his new disciple as a gift. Wukong, delighted by anything that gleamed, put it on without hesitation. It contracted immediately to a tight fit around his skull. He could not remove it. And Guanyin gave Tang Sanzang the words to the tightening fillet spell, a chant that would cause the headband to constrict further, bringing even the Monkey King to his knees in pain. The most powerful warrior in creation could be stopped by a headache. He carried that band on his head for the rest of the journey. And here is the point that cleaves the novel from the game. The novel says the headband dissolved when Wukong achieved Buddhahood. Its purpose was served, and it simply ceased to be. That is the promise made to him. That is the resolution offered. In Black Myth Wukong, it did not dissolve. And everything that follows is built on that single difference. The pilgrimage from China to India, the west of the novel's title, spans 108,000 li. In Buddhist numerology, that number represents all the afflictions that cloud the human mind. The 81 trials the group faced along the way were not simply obstacles, but, in the novel's framing, opportunities. Each one a chance to burn away impurity and move closer to enlightenment. The road was spiritual as much as it was geographic. The companions who gathered around Tang Sanzang were each, in their own way, working off some form of cosmic debt. Zhu Baji, Pigsy, or Zhu the Eight Prohibitions, had once been the marshal of the heavenly canopy, a figure of real authority in the celestial court. He was exiled to the mortal world after a drunken transgression involving the moon goddess, and through a navigational error in reincarnation, found himself inhabiting a pig's body. He had been living as a demon on a mountain when the pilgrimage came through. He was recruited, reluctant but ultimately compliant, and became the story's most human figure, driven by hunger and comfort-seeking and an almost admirable consistency in finding reasons to do less. He also showed real bravery at pivotal moments. That tension was what made him worth watching across the entire journey. Sha Wujing, Sandy, had been a celestial general exiled to the flowing Sands River after accidentally shattering a precious crystal goblet during a heavenly feast. He became a river demon, quiet and solitary, until the group came through and brought him into the fold. He was the most reliable of the three disciples, carrying the luggage, fighting when needed, rarely the center of anything. The white dragon horse had been a dragon prince condemned for Gurgar, setting fire to his father's precious pearl. His death sentence was commuted to a term of service as a horse, and he carried Tang Sanzang in transformed form for the entirety of the journey. Through all of it, Wukong was the vanguard, scouting ahead, identifying what the demons ahead truly were, doing most of the fighting. The fiery eyes and golden pupils he had gained from surviving Laozi's furnace let him see through any disguise, and the road was full of creatures wearing innocent faces. Demons who feared the scriptures, monsters who simply wanted to eat the monk. Wukong dispatched them efficiently, and sometimes ruthlessly, and Tang Sanzang, deeply kind, easily misled, banished him from the group more than once when he could not see what Wukong had clearly seen and acted on. The most devastating test of this dynamic came with the six-eared macaque, a demon of extraordinary power with an almost supernatural resemblance to Wukong, capable of duplicating not just his appearance but his staff, his techniques, and his voice. The macaque impersonated Wukong and attacked the monk. For a long and terrible stretch of the story, Wukong found himself accused of the violence he had spent the entire journey fighting against. The heavenly court could not tell them apart. Guan Yin could not tell them apart. Only the Buddha could see through the duplication and confirm the truth. He was cleared. But the incident left something in the story. A persistent question about what it means to be judged by what you appear to be rather than what you are. This pattern of Wukong being doubted, controlled, and disciplined despite his competence and loyalty is one the game inherits and deepens. The pilgrimage went on. 81 trials, demons, enchanted kingdoms, false paradises, river spirits, long stretches of road, and through all of it, the golden band on Wukong's skull, always there, impossible to remove, a constant reminder of the conditions under which his freedom had been returned to him. They reached India. They received the scriptures. They returned to China. Tang Sanzang became a Buddha. Sha Wujing became a celestial monk. Zhu Baji, whose spiritual growth was judged incomplete, was given the title Cleanser of the Altars, a celestial position whose primary function involved consuming the leftover offerings at ceremonies, a consequence that fit his character precisely. The white dragon horse became a heavenly dragon, and Sun Wukong was awarded the title of Victorious Fighting Buddha. In the novel, this is the end. The headband dissolved because its purpose was complete. The Monkey King was free. The story closed warmly on the image of a creature who had been born wild, had been chained and unchained and chained again, and had arrived at peace. Black myth. Wukong opens the door behind that image, and what is behind it is not peace. Here is where the game diverges from the legend. In the novel, the headband dissolves. That is the promise. In Black Myth, Wukong, which game science frames explicitly as a black myth, a darker reading of events the novel chose not to show, the headband did not dissolve. Wukong received the title. He received the honor. The band on his skull remained exactly as tight as it had always been. If you sit with that implication, the entire pilgrimage changes shape. Because if the headband was never going to be removed, if Buddhahood was the destination, but not actually freedom, then the road west was not atonement leading to liberation. It was management. The Celestial Court had found a way to keep their most dangerous problem occupied and pointed at a purpose they controlled. When the journey was done and the scriptures were delivered, the band was still there, and the court expected Wukong to remain in the Western heaven as a Buddha, surrounded by the same hierarchical structure he had been fighting his entire life. He refused. He wanted to go home. He returned to Huaguoshan. The court, deeply mistrustful of a Wukong with no mission to occupy him and no ongoing mechanism of control, responded. The game presents this as an act of coercion. The monkeys of Huaguoshan were killed, apparently as pressure to force Wukong back under authority. The killing of his people was the line he could not endure. He confronted the celestial army, and Erlang Shen came for him again, the same opponent from centuries before, now meeting him at the summit of his own mountain. The fight, from the outside, looked like everything it appeared to be. Wukong's final stand, the golden headband tightening at the critical moment, and Erlang delivering the blow that sealed the great sage into stone, returned to the mountain of his birth. Sealed, as he had been sealed before, becoming stone again, as things born from stone eventually do. Except that is not what was happening. In the final moment before the stone closed around him, Sun Wukong executed a plan that must have taken a long time to design. He split himself, fractured his own being into 6 distinct pieces, each corresponding to one of the 6 senses described in Buddhist philosophy: the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. 6 relics scattered across the landscape of China. The relics were powerful enough to draw attention. Former enemies and unlikely figures found them, claimed them, kept them. The demon figures spread across the game's 6 chapters, each holding a piece of what the great sage had been. The black bear Guai kept the relic of sight atop a pagoda on Black Wind Mountain. The yellow wind sage encased the relic of hearing inside the severed head of a bodhisattva. And so the pieces of the Monkey King spread through the world he had once moved through in a different life. The monkeys of Huaguoshan understood enough to act. Over the centuries, they sent young warriors out, monkey after monkey, trying to recover the relics and bring their king back. Most failed. Some came back with stories. Some didn't come back at all. The pattern of trying and failing and sending another became, over time, something like a faith. The sixth relic, the mind, was not held by any demon. The game tells us directly, through the old monkey's voice in the final chapter, that the mind of a living being cannot be preserved the way a sense organ can. It is not a faculty attached to the body. It is the life itself. When a life ends, the mind ends with it. It cannot be contained in a relic and kept for later. It fades into the world, formless, and eventually finds its way into something new. The mind of Sun Wukong coalesced in a small, unnamed monkey on Huaguo Shan, who rose one day, picked up a staff, and began a journey with no clear memory of why it felt so urgently necessary. The protagonist of Black Myth, Wukong, is called simply the Destined One, Tian Ming Ren, the heaven-fated person. They do not speak. They carry no memories of who they might really be. They move forward with an instinct for combat that looks, to anyone watching, very much like something remembered rather than learned, and a quiet determination that is, as the old monkey will eventually explain, not coincidence. They are the mind of Sun Wukong, carrying the most personal and irreplaceable piece of the great sage without knowing it. Every step toward the other 5 relics is the mind of the Monkey King reaching back toward the rest of itself. Chapter 1 takes the Destined One through Black Wind Mountain, a green, eerie forest where the black bear Guai has enshrined the relic of sight, craving eyes, atop a pagoda. A small, elderly figure called the Keeper guides the Destined One through this first chapter. The bear surrenders when defeated, not simply destroyed. He is a custodian of something that was never his to keep. Chapter 2 crosses into the desert. Yellow Wind Ridge, a blasted landscape where the yellow wind sage has been using the relic of hearing, fuming ears, as the engine of his storms, encasing it inside the severed head of the Bodhisattva Lingji, the headless monk who wanders the ridge playing a 3-stringed Sanxian in the dust is Lingji himself, waiting. When the yellow wind sage falls, Lingji reclaims his head and hands over the second relic. Chapter 3 climbs into cold mountains, a place called the New West, an ironic geographic echo of the original pilgrimage. The antagonist is Yellowbrow, who has disguised himself as the future Buddha Maitreya and used the relic of smell, hubris nose, to freeze an entire lake. This chapter is also where the Destined One finds Zhu Bajie, who has been imprisoned inside a pair of gold symbols. When the symbols are destroyed in the course of a battle, Baji tumbles free. He joins the quest, still recognizably himself, still pig-faced and self-interested, and perpetually looking for something to eat, and brings the shape of the original pilgrimage forward into this new one. Chapter 4 descends into the Webbed Ridge, a landscape threaded with silk and inhabited by the Spider Guai family. The relic of taste, envious tongue, is held here by the 100-eyed Taoist warrior, the patriarch of the spider demons. An unlikely ally from within the spider family helps the Destined One through this chapter, complicating the usual clarity between enemy and friend. Chapter 5 moves into the territory of the Bull King, aging and ill, still demanding the respect he once commanded. The Bull King was one of Wukong's sworn brothers in another life. His family is fractured. His son Red Boy ends up claiming the relic of touch, grieved body, by swallowing it rather than letting it be taken. Red Boy is defeated, and then, rather than submit, he destroys himself. His mother Rakshasi pleads for mercy and offers her plantain fan, but cannot stop what her son chose. The relic is freed by his refusal to go quietly. There is something in this chapter that aches in a specific way, the Destined One, walking through the ruins of every friendship Wukong once had. Chapter 6 returns to Hua Guo Shan itself. Wukong's armor is recovered. The Jingubang is recovered. The Destined One passes through the stone at the summit into a realm between memory and place, a landscape shaped by the last fragments of the great sage's lingering awareness. The old monkey is here, ferrying the Destined One and Zhu Baji across still water toward the final truth. And in this between place, the old monkey finally says what has been building through the entire journey. The Destined One is not a monkey who came to revive someone else. The Destined One is the mind of Sun Wukong, the one relic that could not be captured, because the mind does not survive death the way a sense does. It ends, and then it begins again, in something new, carrying nothing from before except the shape of its nature. Wukong can never come back as he was. But the universe, the old monkey says, will always give someone like him a successor. Here is the thing that changes everything. Erlang Shen knew. He knew before the fight happened. He knew before Wukong was sealed in stone. He had been part of the plan from the beginning, not a servant of the celestial court executing an enemy, but an unlikely conspirator helping the one being in all of creation who had never been able to simply be free, work out a way to finally become it. The only way to remove the golden headband was death. In this version of the story, Buddhahood had not dissolved it, and no other mechanism was going to. The band would stay as long as Wukong lived. And Wukong's immortality, 9 accumulated layers of it, through peaches and elixirs and the Samadhi fire, made mortal death through any ordinary means impossible. The answer Wukong arrived at was staggering in what it required. He would unmake himself deliberately, fracture into 6 relics, cease to be a singular entity, scatter everything he was across the world in pieces, and trust that something would come after. A successor carrying his name, his power, and none of the chains the old life had accumulated. A mortal death for an immortal mind. The headband, bound to the life it was placed on, would have nothing left to bind. Erlang Shen agreed to help. He had his own reckoning with the corruption of the celestial court. He delivered the killing blow in the opening fight, but he also caught the most precious thing that came loose from it, the 6th relic, the mind, which he sealed inside his own third eye. He kept it there, protecting it for centuries, waiting for the right successor to arrive and be ready to receive it. This is confirmed in the game's own lore entries and through the fight with Erlang himself. It is not speculative interpretation, but the game's stated truth, delivered through the cutscene triggered after his defeat. The Destined One can find and fight Erlang Shen in a secret encounter, one requiring the completion of hidden quests and secret areas across all 5 preceding chapters, with no direct pointer in the game. There is something fitting in that. The truth of what happened is not given freely. You have to earn it, the way the Destined One earns everything else. Upon Erlang's defeat, black smoke releases from his third eye. With it come the memories of Sun Wukong, everything Wukong saw and knew and felt, flowing into the Destined One, including the memory of the moment before the final fight, when Wukong told Erlang quietly, "I will rip off this headband, even if I have to die to do it." Erlang, after the fight, is calm. He says he is now at peace. He tells the Destined One not to fail the Monkey King, and he walks away, one of the very few figures in the game who survives a defeat by the Destined One. He was not an opponent to be finished. He was a keeper who had been waiting for the right moment to hand over what he was holding. The final confrontation is with the great sage's broken shell, what remains of Wukong in the stone. When the shell is defeated, the 5 relics unite with the Destined One, and the golden headband materializes and falls to the ground. The old monkey picks it up. The 2 endings turn on what happens next. In one ending, achievable without the Erlang fight, the old monkey places the headband on the Destined One's head. It is accepted. The new Sun Wukong has arrived, carrying all of Wukong's power and none of his memory of why the headband was never supposed to transfer. The Celestial Court has its successor. The control is restored. The cycle continues. It reads as though Wukong's plan half worked. A new monkey stands in his place, but the chain came with everything else. In the true ending, available only after the Erlang fight and all 6 relics, the Destined One opens their eyes as the old monkey approaches. Something in them recognizes what is in the old monkey's hand. The memories from Erlang's third eye unspool backward, through the shattering, through the pilgrimage, through the celestial wars, all the way to the moment on the mountain where Wukong told Erlang what he was going to do. The Destined One understands. They do not put the headband on. They stand on the summit of Huaguoshan without any chain on their head, carrying everything the great sage was, free of everything that was ever used to hold him. Qi Tian Da Sheng, the great sage, equal to heaven, reborn, for the first time in the history of the legend, truly unbound. Black Myth Wukong was released on August 20th, 2024. It reached 2.4 million concurrent players on Steam at its peak, the second highest ever recorded on the platform at the time, behind only PUBG. It sold 20 million units in its first month, making it one of the fastest-selling games of all time. It became widely recognized as the first Chinese AAA game to find that scale of international reach, and it introduced the legend of Sun Wukong to a global audience who had never encountered the source material. For those players, this was a first encounter with Journey to the West, the stone on the mountain, the waterfall cave, the Dragon King's palace, the war in heaven, the 5 elements mountain, the monk and the pilgrimage, and the 81 trials. The game was designed to work for those players, each major reference explained within its own context. But there is a layer only visible when you already know the story. Because what Black Myth Wukong does, its deepest, most quietly devastating move, is take a legend that ends in honor and peace, and ask what if the honor was hollow, and the peace was a controlled environment? What if everything the Monkey King was told about the road ahead was true enough to follow, but designed to keep him manageable? What if Buddhahood, rather than being the liberation it was presented as, was simply the most comfortable cage ever built for him? Game Science titled the series Black Myth deliberately. The darkness is not in the violence or the monsters. It is in the reframing of what the legend means. It is in the headband that never dissolved. The old monkey who has been sitting beside the stone for centuries, telling the young monkeys the stories, is carrying something that functions like grief, and something that functions like faith in the same chest. The stories have been told so many times, they have become something between myth and religion. The narrator who opens the game acknowledges this directly. We don't know if Wukong truly attained Buddhahood. We don't know if the journey happened exactly as told. We don't even know with certainty that he was real. And yet the stone is there, and the monkeys keep going out. And one of them, eventually, came back different. Game Science has confirmed that Sun Wukong's story will return in future Black Myth entries in a more complete and substantial form. The next game in the series, Black Myth, Zhongkui, follows a different figure from Chinese mythology. But the promise stands. He was born from a stone and became a king. He became a warrior, and then a pilgrim, and then a Buddha who refused to stop moving. He was sealed in stone and became something scattered. 6 seeds waiting to find their way back to each other. And now he stands on a mountain with nothing on his head, carrying every name he has ever been given, and none of the weight attached to any of them. The stone on the mountain absorbed the energy of heaven and earth and sun and moon for longer than any institution lasted, and produced something it could not contain. Something that did not belong to any court or any hierarchy or any list of the mortal dead. Something that would keep finding its way back, no matter how many mountains were placed on top of it. That is what the stone was always saying. That is what the legend has always been about. Not arrival at a fixed point, not the peace of a cage, just the ongoing movement of something that refuses to stop. The mountain will still be there when you wake up. Thank you so much for spending this time with me tonight, following the full arc of Sun Wukong from the stone he was born from to the open sky of what he finally becomes. If this kind of slow, deep journey through game lore is something that settles you into rest, I would be so grateful if you considered subscribing to Sleepable Gaming Lore and leaving a like if the story found its way to you. There are many more worlds to explore together. Rest well.